Hello to everyone and every member of the Battalion Wars community, and welcome to a very special video and a very difficult video for me because I'm talking in a language that isn't mine, so that's English. And this is a new episode for the Battalion Wars Radio Station, as I call it, with Jake the Tank Master.
Hello.
So, Jake, surely you will know him from the drawings and tanks of Sprocket tank design. So Fan Battalion and I decided to make an interview to just show to everybody the amazing work he has done so far, and we're hoping he will continue to impress us with new designs. So we were thinking to introduce yourself with some questions. So if you want, we can begin with the questions. So, for example, how did you find about Battalion Wars? How did you discover that universe?
Now, I remember this well a long time ago. I was about 5 years old and I got a black Wii for Christmas because I wanted to play Mario Kart with my dad at home. And that was because I used to play it with one of my older cousins when I visited her house, and she had a pink Wii herself, I remember. And it was so much fun, like. And I remember then maybe when I was 8 years old, and even then around that time, the internet was not very widespread in Ireland, especially rural Ireland where I lived. But we were lucky enough to have a wired connection, although it was painfully slow. So we couldn't really get the most out of it, and that was only 10 years ago. But while the internet fascinated me as an 8-year-old, I still had my Wii as my main source of entertainment. Now, where Battalion Wars comes into this is when one day I remember going to a shopping centre with my family halfway across the country, which wasn't actually that far since Ireland's a tiny country.
Yeah, I know. I visited once.
Yeah. Oh, and I remember walking into a GameStop with my dad, and I can vividly remember seeing this one game in particular on a shelf which really caught my attention more than anything else. And this was Battalion Wars 2. Now, I remember seeing the cover art, like it was so colourful and just nice to look at.
Yeah.
And what appealed to me the most was that there's just so much going on the cover, like there's tanks and everything on it. And I thought that was really cool at that age, and I still very much do. So I bought the game anyway, and this was the first game I ever got which was rated at like PEGI 12. And that's like for ages 12 and up. And I was only 8 years old at the time, and I thought
that's not legal, Jake.
Yeah, I thought that would be bad, but thankfully there was no problem at all. So on the way home in the car, I was so excited to play it, and I remember reading the little instruction booklet or the manual that came in the game box, and I remember thinking that all the units just looked so cool.
Oh yeah, I remember too, yeah.
Yeah. It was great, and when I finally got home, I booted up the game, and long story short, I absolutely loved every bit of it. And yeah, that's how I felt about the game ever since.
And did you play Battalion Wars 1, the one from the GameCube?
I have not actually. I have only played Battalion Wars 2. Like
Okay.
I really wanted to play the original though. I only had a Wii, as I said, not a GameCube. But I think there is a way of playing GameCube games on the Wii, but I had no idea you could do that back
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
But,
you perfectly can. Battalion Wars is the one. I mean, both of them are spectacular, but the first, I really like it because it's the first one, and it's quite difficult compared to the two, because the campaign is, I think it's pretty easy, but the one, even now with all my experience, I was forced to do multiple times some missions, because some missions in a particular situation can be very difficult.
yeah, from the look of it, actually, I remember Not that long ago, I watched like a 5 hour long play of the original Battalion Wars on YouTube over the
Mm-hmm.
course of maybe a few days, just to see what I like missed out on. And it's safe to say that I did miss out on a good bit. Like it looked like great fun. And I will say as well, you can see what each game did better than the other, and what I felt was missing. Like, for example, I thought, say, Colonel Austin, Major Nelly, and Countess Ingrid were really cool characters, and it's a shame they weren't in the second game.
Yeah, true. I mean, Colonel Austin, you can see it in the From Thunder with Love mission, multiplayer mission, co-op mission.
Oh, did not know
But
that.
yeah, it's because that was one of the questions. I mean, it's not in the order, but do you ever play? Did you ever play multiplayer on Battalion Wars 2?
I have not actually.
You
No, I
should
didn't.
play. It's so
No.
fun.
I really want to give it a go. Like I think I'm one of these days I'm just gonna figure out how to do it, and then I'm just gonna
Well, I can help you.
yeah.
I'm helping people every single day with. I mean, yesterday I was helping Emmons. He's Belgium. He's from Belgium, and Colonel
Okay.
Strat. He's from the USA. So we were in the voice chat of the Battlefield Wars Discord server voice chat, and we played
Yeah.
together yesterday.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So I can help you. It's very easy and it's so fun. So talking if, a little more about Battle Wars. What is your favorite nation and your least? No, sorry, no. What's your favorite nation?
Well, this is a really tough question to answer. Like I love all the nations, and I really like that they're based on stereotypes of real nations, and that they like all have their own unique color to identify them by. Like the
Yeah,
frontier is green, and the Anglos are nice gold and yellow. The solars are like silver with blotches of navy blue and all that. The nations have really cool units as well, and like you can see that the developers really did their homework
yeah,
when making units,
yeah.
as many of
You can
them are
feel the
inspired.
love. You can feel the love in that game.
Yeah, you really can. Um, I like the Frontier light tank. It looks like a weird M4 Sherman tank, but
Yeah.
like the resemblance is there. I like the Frontier heavy tank as well. It looks like an Abrams tank with two barrels, which is just really funny to look at.
Can you imagine M1 Abrams with two cannons? I mean, already with one it's just deadly. So imagine with two.
Yeah, it really is just really funny to look at. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Um, I really like as well in some of the descriptions for the units. There's like real history gone into them, like kind of like inspiration taken from them. I think the Exylvanian assault vet's gun is called Vlad's Buzzsaw or something like that, and that's a reference to the German MG42
Yeah, the
machine gun.
MG42, yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the Hitler chainsaw or something like that.
it was Hitler's Buzzsaw, I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah.
And I
When
think,
I yeah
yeah,
the unit dossier, it's so beautiful because you can zoom on the units. So I suppose it helped you a lot to create the Sprocket versions of the Baton Wars 2 units, I think.
yeah,
And even all the little lore, the lore text, it's wonderful.
it
And
really is, yeah.
talking a bit more in Baton Wars in detail, is there any mission you like in particular? And if that's the case, why? And your least favorite mission? I mean, in this case, Baton Wars 2 because you didn't play Baton Wars 1.
Yeah. Well, now my favorite mission, I have a few actually, but one that really stood out to me was Wings of the Gunship, the second
Yeah,
mission of the
of the Western
Frontier
Frontier,
campaign.
yes.
Yeah. I remember thinking the opening to that mission was done really well, and it gives you the sense that the Frontier is a very well organized army,
Hmm.
where you start off in a little outpost on the edge of the map with tents and supplies and all that, and all their units are lined up in a professional manner, and like they know the Tundrans have frigates in the river nearby, so they won't set up their gunships and all that. But one of the most memorable moments in the whole game for me was being one of those 3 frontier artilleries and just opening up on the Tundran frigates,
Yeah,
blocking the river, while being attacked by Tundran gunships and bazooka vets. And it was also in that mission that, like, you can see for the first time that the Exylvanians are up to
exactly.
no good.
Yes. If you're curious, you can go to the west, and then you will find a Sylvania mine
Yeah,
extraction point.
like that's the first time you might be able to think, are these guys actually the biggest bad guys in the game or something?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and a lot of other missions as well are really good. Like I loved Operation Reprimand in the Anglo campaign. I thought
Mm-hmm.
the cleanup squad were a great gimmick, and
Yeah.
yeah, that mission had a great nighttime setting and atmosphere, and not to mention just how like cool the reveal of the solar dreadnought was. That was just brilliant.
Yeah. When you
Um,
one of my favorite moments, it's when you have to score the cleanup squad with a bomber, and there are like 6 or 7 artillery in the other side of the bridge, and you can
oh
just
yeah, that
bomb
was
them because
great.
they're just all together, and you're just like, you're gonna receive some bombs.
This is
Yeah, it's
great.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have a mission that you didn't like, or that it was a bit tedious, or?
I'd say my least favorite mission, if there's one mission I'm not very fond of, it would probably be the last mission in the game, The
Hmm.
Reckoning in the Tundran campaign. Now, objectively, this mission is laid out very well and like it gives a satisfying ending to the game, but I remember it being incredibly difficult for young me to complete at the time. Like there was a ridiculous amount of Exylvanian battle stations to destroy, and
Yeah.
they're easily the most terrifying looking units in the game, in my opinion. So I would get like really anxious while going up against one in my own Tundran battle station, and I felt it was necessary to like preserve all your liberated POW units like the frontier heavy tanks and the solar anti-air vehicles, or the mission would be almost impossible to complete. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would restart the mission if I lost any of those units. But I have to say though, I liked the Alliance of Nations gimmick. I thought that was cool. But at the same time, I also knew that this was the last mission in the game, and I didn't want the game to end because it gave me like so many hours of fun. So I left the final mission open for a long time and just played many of the previous missions over and over until one day when I was 12, I think, I thought, you know what, I'm going to finish this game. So I loaded up The
It is
Reckoning,
time.
and yeah, it's time. I finished it first try. I could not believe it. But even though I didn't want the game to end, the ending was worth it. But since then, I've never fully liked this mission since I associated it with such difficulty when I was younger.
Well, talking about the ending, do you think, because the ending um, lets you think that maybe there will be a comeback from Exlovenia, so do you think there will be a Battalion Wars 3, even if it sounds very unlikely? But and if
Well,
you do think, or maybe even if you don't think there will be a Battalion Wars 3, what would you add to Battalion Wars 3 if it existed?
well, I thought the ending of the second game was very well done, and it gave maybe a lot of options really for the developers to kind of take it a step further with the new game. They had a lot to kind of work with from there, really. But while I do like to think that nothing's impossible and that like you should never say never, I also think the reality is that the chance of us getting the Battalion Wars 3 is unfortunately slim to none. And I'd even say a remaster of the first 2 games would be more likely than a third
Yeah,
installment in the
maybe.
Battalion Wars series. Yeah.
So if you remaster the one or the two, because you know two better than the one, what would you change? Or
Well, some things that I would add to a supposed Battalion Wars 3 would be for all the nations to get all the units. Like the Anglo Isles get a recon, the Iron Legion get a light tank, and so on. And you can
That's
use
true.
every single unit at some point in the game. And I'd also like if there were at least 5 missions for each nation's campaign, and for naval units to get some more time in the spotlight. But a cool feature I thought of a long time ago was to be able to interact with base facilities a little bit more. For example, you can choose what a factory produces, and say to
Ah.
prevent the player from just spamming battle stations all the time,
Mm.
um, you could have a points limit, and each unit costs a certain amount of points. Like, for example, a factory has 10 points you can use, sometimes more, sometimes less. And say a
That's
recon might
interesting.
cost 2, a light tank and anti-air vehicle 3, a heavy tank and artillery 5, and a battle station 8. And like, say, units can be locked for certain missions,
Okay.
and you can have like a few at a time, and then they have like different cooldowns when they're destroyed and all that. But this then would allow you to have unique combinations of units for each mission, and like not only for factories, you can also have maybe barracks points or air base points and so on, and that allows you to use all the units in the game as well. Um, I'd also like even bigger maps, some more urban maps as well. But
Yes,
I
the true
thought,
urban maps, yes. Because there was a little bit of urban combat in the Operation Nautilus
yeah, I was just
mission.
about to say that was I
Yeah,
absolutely loved that mission. That was great.
yeah.
I think more more nations are a must as well, like inspired by maybe France, Spain, Italy, Ireland, maybe Australia.
Ireland. They're
One
gonna have
combo
the treble. Yeah, it's called like that. The treble.
treble.
Yeah. What's the symbol of Ireland? I mean, there's the harp, and also the little plant with the symbol of good luck.
Shamrocks, yeah.
Oh yeah.
You could have little tractors going around or something. They'd be
Hmm.
kind of like the Trundrons, but maybe not as ragtag, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'd
And
say, yeah.
talking about Battalion Wars, this is one of the latest last questions. I mean, there are two questions. How do you find about the Battalion Wars community?
Well, at first I had no idea there was such a large community of passionate fans of the Battalion Wars games. Now, I remember about 3 years ago or so, I just started thinking about Battalion Wars again one day. But then I wondered if there was any sort of fan base surrounding these games at all, because it would be such a shame if these brilliant games were basically lost to history. I remember talking to people online every now and then about our favorite games, and not a single one had ever heard of Battalion Wars. I think one or two might have heard of Advance Wars, but that's about it. Um, when I was younger and played Battalion Wars 2, some friends used to come like visit my house, sometimes to play Mario Kart on the Wii,
Mm-hmm.
but they might see the Battalion Wars 2 box and ask what it was. And I'd say it was my favorite game, and what I'd do was I'd load up a mission, show them how to play, and then let them play. And a lot of them absolutely loved it. And this was at a time when the PlayStation 3 was in its prime, and Grand Theft Auto 5 was a brand new game. So that's telling you how long ago that was. But
Mm-hmm.
I, I thought about all that, and I really wanted to know if there was a Battalion Wars fan base. So one of the places I first went to was Reddit, and I typed Battalion Wars into the search bar, and I saw a subreddit called Battalion Wars Mod pop up with only about 200 members, I think, and it was kind of dead, to be honest, but I thought it was better than nothing. But then I saw one of the pinned messages describing a Battalion Wars Discord server. So,
Ah.
yeah, naturally, I pressed on the link, and I could not believe my eyes when I saw how populated and active this Battalion War server was. Like, I couldn't believe the last messages sent in the server were from only a few minutes ago. And yeah, that's how I found out Battalion Wars was still loved by so many.
That's so beautiful.
It
What
really is.
and what do you think about all the projects that are being carried out in the community? For example, the custom missions of Copernic and Zeno, the models that Yoshi Tweet's making, the project Pugums is doing, all the. I mean, there was a tournament ongoing. It was cancelled because people couldn't play on the summer, but there are ideas of tournaments going on. And so, what do you think about all of that? Do you have one that most attract your attention, or
Well, a lot of them now, really. But from what I can see spread about the Battalion Wars Discord, I'm really surprised that there are just community members who love the game so much that they're actively working on their own projects. Like I've seen many of Kupernik's videos on YouTube, for example, and I was just blown away that he's able to mod and make his own custom missions that would really fit well into the original Battalion Wars.
yeah?
Uh,
I mean,
Kupernik also does
I
it.
play them
Yeah,
because I don't know if you know, but each Saturday, yeah, Saturday, I play all the missions Copernic is making. So and I'm just amazed by what he has achieved.
like yeah, they really look like they would fit well into the original game. You know,
Yes.
they really would work well. He also does a great job at making animations. Like I thought his video on training frontier light tank crews was
Yes, that
very
was
well done.
incredible.
Yeah, that was brilliant. As well, sometimes in the server, I might go into the Corgisburg Art Gallery channel in the Discord and just look at what everyone's making. And some of the things which really caught my eye were some of Pugum's drawings. Like,
Yes.
apologies if I mispronounced their name, but these look like great concept art for new battalion organizations. And that one French-inspired nation in particular just stunned me with how cool their aesthetic was with the whole castle architecture thing going on.
Yeah.
Um, I was especially interested in how some of the infantry weapons looked like the French FAMAS rifle, and from what I've seen as well, it looks like Pogums has like big aspirations for those in a big project of some sort, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out.
Yeah. We all want to see how it's gonna evolve, but Bogums, it's not the main light here. The main light here is you. So we're gonna talk about you now, with the Sprocket tank design. So I have to. I mean, I know a little bit what it is about, but I think many people won't know what it's about. So tell us before all the questions, what is Sprocket tank design? What it consists of, or how to play it, or
Right, so Sprocket is quite a new game that was released in early access near the end of 2021, if I can remember.
okay,
Now, the game is made entirely by one guy, as far as I know. Now, long story short, Sprocket is a game where you can make your own tanks.
mm-hmm.
Like, you can try to replicate real tanks, you can make your own tanks, you can take inspiration, for example, with my Battalion Wars tanks, and you can make the most hilarious looking tanks ever.
Yeah,
Like,
because as we can see on the photo, there's like a in the
yeah,
middle. There's like a tank with I don't know how we say the chain that goes that surrounds
the
the wheels.
the tracks. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember making that one.
yeah, with a
I
long, really flashy pink cannon.
It was just ridiculous. I for that one, I remember I tried to. What did I do? I made the overall body of the tank as small as I could, and then I gave it huge tracks, the biggest, longest gun that could fit into it, and to top it all off, I painted it a very bright, shiny pink.
And
Um,
can you make them just move, or is just watch it, like watch this tank, or can you make it shoot or
oh,
and just
absolutely,
go
yeah. You
around?
can, yeah, you can make it drive. You can make it do a lot of stuff. Not everything now, but maybe all the stuff you think of when you think of a tank. You know, you can you can do it in Sprocket.
Okay.
Um, Now, not that long ago, the game was very simple. I think about a year ago, there was an update which updated the designer for making tanks, because before, the tanks you could make were just very boxy. You couldn't make them very complex looking. But about a year ago, this update came in, and it was kind of confusing at first. Um, the way you do it, it's very similar to 3D modeling, which I had no previous experience with. But eventually I figured it out, and it was so much better than the way of making tanks before. Like, the possibilities were quite literally endless. And that was when I finally realized I could make the Battalion Wars tanks.
Yeah,
And
because
so I did.
as we can see on this photo, I mean, in this case is the Solar Empire lighting. We can see that at the beginning it's just like a very simple thing, and then you have those amazing photos. They look like real photos with a very detailed tank. And how did you find about Sprocket tank design?
I actually have no idea how I came across Sprocket.
It came to you.
It kind of did. I think I saw it on Twitter one day, or maybe on YouTube, and then I looked into it some more, and the game wasn't even out yet at that point, and I just thought that it looked really promising, that this was the game that I never knew I wanted, so I eagerly waited its release. And what I like the most about the game is that you can really just let your imagination run free when designing and making these tanks, and I love that the game allows me to recreate the Battalion Wars tanks, as they're such cool designs. But
Well, talking about
go on, yeah.
the Battalion Wars tanks, how long does it take in hours, we suppose, to create one Battalion Wars tank? And could you tell us a little about the process of each one? Because as we can see on this presentation, there was like the Solar Empire. So here is the lighting. Here we have the up left. We have the Western Frontier lighting. The upright, the heavy tank, and down we have both of them. So here we have the heavy tank, the Tundra heavy tank. Here we have the Exylvania heavy tank, and this is the Abernesian heavy tank, because at the beginning I was thinking it was like a light tank, sort of. Here is the light and heavy tank of the Anglo Isles. And here you have a photo with all of them. So yeah, the question was how long does it take in hours to make a Battalion Wars tank? And if you could tell us something specific in the process of each one.
So it usually takes about 4 hours, give or take, for making a tank with high detail, the Battalion Wars tanks included. The first Battalion Wars tank I made in Sprocket was the Solar Light tank. This was one of the first tanks I made with the new designer I was talking about for making tanks that came out about a year ago. And I'll be honest, I only spent about an hour making that one because I still wasn't fully used to it. But I actually redid my Solar Light tank much better not that long ago. The second tank I did was the Frontier Light tank, and it turned out almost perfectly. I could not believe it. Well, when I'm going to make a Battalion Wars tank, I would first open Battalion Wars 2 on the Dolphin emulator, and then go into the unit dossier and take a few screenshots maybe of whatever tank I'm going to do from a few different angles as reference pictures. So then I would close Battalion Wars 2 on Dolphin and load up Sprocket and go into the tank designer. So when you're making a brand new tank, it starts off with two simple boxes, one for the hull and another for the turret.
The turret, yes.
So I would always shape the hull of the tank first, and it's a bit difficult to put into words how to shape them, but it's quite similar to 3D modeling. So when you're done getting the hull shape right, you can move on to the turret and shape that. And after that, you can give each surface on the tank a specific thickness of armor, which really increases its weight. And then because it's so heavy, you have to put a great big engine into it. You can design the engine and transmission, You can do a certain amount of cylinders for the engine, how big it is, and with the transmission you can set how many gears the tank has, going forwards and in reverse, and different ways of steering the tank and so on. You can put on exhaust pipes and all that, fuel tanks. Then you can start making the tracks, like how many wheels you have, how spaced apart they are, how wide they are, and all that. Then you can make the gun and all that. You can change how long it is, how big it is, how much ammo you have in the tank, and all that really increases the weight of the tank. And along with that, you also have to be mindful of how much free space is in the tank for the crew to work.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, you really do. Like it's really complicated. You can have a lot of crew members. You can have a commander, gunner, loader, driver, and so on. And after that, you can put some finishing touches on your tank, like hatches for the crew, headlights, tools, radio, antennas, periscopes, little storage boxes, maybe spare wheels and tracks, just to name a few. And when you put all that stuff on, you can paint your tank whatever color you want. And you can even make your own custom camouflage scheme by first making it in Microsoft Paint, of all things, for example, and then dropping it into Sprocket. So naturally, I made the really cool Solar Empire camo scheme with the silver and splotches of navy blue.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the paint on, you can put a decal on it. So of course, I put the insignias of the Battalion Wars nations on, and yeah.
How did you do that? You just put the photo, like the image, you import the image, or you...
You can, I think the way it works is you could look it up on Google Images or something, and then there's a folder in the game files you have to navigate to, and you can
Okay,
drop
so you can import
yeah,
images.
you can, yeah.
Okay.
And that's very handy.
And
that's- yeah.
what was the tank that cost you the most to make by difficulty? Like the one that you said, yes, I finished it, just like it did, just like I wanted.
The tank that was the most difficult for me to make was probably the Anglo heavy tank. And there's a few reasons for that. Now, one, as far as I know, the Anglo heavy tank is the largest of all of them. And two, it's probably the most complicated looking of the heavy tanks. And it was
Yes.
very tricky to get right. Lastly, three, it was easily the heaviest as well. So the tracks kept buckling, trying to support the weight of the tank. I had to strengthen the suspension so rigidly that I felt every single bump the tank went over as it drove. And despite the tank's enormous weight, it was difficult to protect effectively, because when you make the armor thicker, it makes the tank much heavier, and that makes it harder to move. So you have to put a bigger engine, and I couldn't really angle the armor too much to protect it more, because that would affect the look of the Anglo heavy tank I was trying to make.
Okay.
So yeah.
And what was I mean this is a question I just asked. What is your favorite tank looking in Battalion Wars? Because as we can see, for the moment you didn't do the Solar Empire heavy tank, the light tank of Tundra, and the Slovenian light tank. So is that in mind, or that's because you don't like them a lot, or?
Well, no, actually, the Solar Heavy tank is actually one of my favorites, but the reason why I can't actually do it is because you can't make tanks with just wheels in Sprocket.
Oh,
just
you
yet.
you need the tracks.
Yeah, you need tracks. You can't have it with just wheels just yet, but
And can you just make it, but knowing that it's impossible to make it without tracks, just add some tracks?
I was thinking about that, but then it wouldn't really look proper. I was still kind of thinking about it, but I always kind of just wanted it to look like what it is,
Okay.
I wouldn't really affect the look of it, go making it not the way it's supposed to be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so maybe on the future, Sprocket will release like a futurist, let's say, update that lets you put tanks without tracks, because we know that we can see on all that sci-fi movies that vehicles don't have tracks. It's just wheels or propulsion or something like that, but without tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
And
now
what's is that your favorite looking tank? The Star Empire heavy tank?
I think I think the solar heavy tank is the coolest heavy tank now, but I'd say the coolest looking, in my opinion, is maybe the Frontier light tank because it's just a classic look,
Yeah,
and
it's like the Sherman.
it is, yeah, and that's the Sherman is my favorite tank as well, so of course
I know. I saw it
it'll be up there.
in your Discord description.
Yeah. Um,
You're a
yeah,
Sherman
that's
simp.
my favorite. Yeah, you could say that. You could say that.
And how do you take those incredible old-fashioned photos at night? Is that from the game or is it a separate thing? Because I mean, I have to say it's quite intimidating. Like for example, the Anglo Isles heavy tank at night. It's it's very intimidating, and it makes me think. For example, something that I could add in Battalion Wars 3, it would be night combat. For example, with where the units or the heavy tanks, as you do, could use like lights to
Yeah,
to
yeah,
see on night.
that would be quite cool. Um, Well, with those pictures, I made them using the game itself.
Okay.
Just a few months ago, Sprocket got an update which introduced a free camera mode, which allows you to free look about the map and take very cinematic pictures of your tanks. You can add filters and all that, adjust the depth of field and so on to get a really great look at your tank. The pictures at nighttime, especially, are my favorite because just of the way the light shines off the tanks looks really
Yes.
cool and it highlights all the details.
Yeah, but the
Another
heavy tank
thing,
also
yeah,
looks very menacing.
it does, like, just at nighttime, it really makes all the details pop and
Yeah.
all that. Another thing about those Battalion Wars tanks at night is that it really makes them look better and more cinematic with their headlights and rear lights on. I made some pictures similar to the footage used in the Frontier mission Line in the Sand. Do you know the first mission in the Frontier? There's like old footage in that. And I
Oh
was quite,
yeah. Okay.
I tried doing something like that and I thought it turned out kind of cool.
Okay.
So
Um,
yeah,
so moving to the drawings, because you were also doing some drawings and they are just like incredible. Since when did you start drawing pictures? Is it a hobby or do you have any work related to painting or drawing?
now I have always been doodling stuff in my spare time, basically ever since I could pick up a pencil. So in primary school, when I was younger, I would always be doodling things, especially little tanks, cars, or planes, like in the back of my copybook when I was bored. And I always did this right up through secondary school, and even now in college, when we're not doing anything, I just doodle some stuff to pass the time. People who saw my doodles would always just say that I put a ridiculous amount of detail into them and that I should properly take up drawing as a hobby or something professional. I only started drawing very seriously about 3 or 4 years ago when I started drawing on a somewhat large scale on A4 sheets of paper
Hmm.
because drawing used to be a thing I did to pass the time, but then I started doing it as a hobby. When I started drawing properly on these proper sheets of paper, I just drew the tanks, cars, planes, and so on I drew in school, but on a larger scale. Like, I knew how to draw stuff and put in the details, but I thought my first proper drawings were a bit messy, and I never realised why until about 2 years ago when I thought about using a ruler. Because because before all that, all I did was freehand. The first drawing I did with a ruler just blew me away because of how much it actually looked like the thing I was trying to draw.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that was really when I got addicted to drawing stuff then, and that's where we are now. Drawing has always been very much a hobby for me, and I'd love to properly get into doing requests or commissions and stuff, as it had given me even more incentive to put the most effort into them.
Okay. And mostly we can see that you draw in relation to all kinds of tanks and even vehicles, because we can see at the end that you make a Nissan DeLorean and La Testa Rossa from Ferrari. Could you tell us a little about its process and complexity? I mean, how long, for example, how long does it take to make a drawing?
Well, I've always drawn tanks more than anything else because they got a lot of details to draw, which I like. Um, as well as just because I've got a great interest in tanks in general. But just when I'm making a new drawing, I first have to get get an idea in my head of what it is I'm going to draw. Now I have about 30 drawing ideas ready to go at any given time, and I would just pick one at random each time. So, say for example, I was going to draw a tank, I would imagine it in some scenario in my head, such as driving through a green field or in a city or in a forest and so on. And then I'd think of what's actually going on in the picture. Like, is the tank just driving along? Is there a battle going on? What time of day is it? What's the weather like, and so on. Sometimes I would use a reference image for the tank, and but very rarely for backgrounds. I would also sometimes take inspiration from other pictures I saw and thought were cool and try to make my own interpretation of them. So when I actually start putting a pencil on the page, I would first use a very light 2H pencil freehand just to get some overall perspective going on, as well as to set the scene and to give me a better idea of what everything's going to look like. After that, I would use a heavy HB pencil with a ruler to
Mm-hmm.
really get to work and put in all the details of everything. Once that's done, the outline of everything is basically done. So I would then go over all the lines I did with the HB pencil with a very fine drawing pen or marker to make the outlines pop out a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would start shading everything that needs it in uh, with HB pencil, and finally give everything a bit of color with coloring pencils, pastels, watercolor markers, and so on. So that's basically how I go about making a drawing.
Okay. And apart from the drawings, do you have any project in mind related to Battalion Wars?
I don't have anything Battalion Wars related in the works right now, but I have actually been thinking for the longest time about a video series I could do on YouTube, which will involve me reviewing various Battalion Wars units, especially the tanks, and discussing things like what the devs could have taken inspiration from when designing the units, what the good parts and bad parts of their designs are, and so on. It would also be an opportunity to promote Battalion Wars and to get it just that little bit more well known to the general
Yes,
public.
we are all
Yeah,
trying. We're all trying.
we all are. I have a huge video in the works right now, actually. The script for which is about 19,000 words long, and
Wow.
yeah, I've been editing it slowly for weeks at this stage, and I really think I'll work on that Battalion Wars video afterwards.
Okay. Well, we're excited for that project. Is the support that people give to your works, the tanks, the drawings, everything, a source of motivation for you? I mean, can you feel a feedback from the community?
Well, it absolutely is a source of motivation for me, all right. Like it's always a great feeling when I put a lot of effort into something like those Italian War tanks and Sprocket or those drawings, and then seeing people absolutely loving them and giving me great feedback and constructive criticism. definitely motivates me and makes me feel like it's worth it. And I'm not just making them for myself, like people actually appreciate some of the stuff I do, and there's no other feeling like that, and it really gives me the incentive to keep going.
Well, I don't know if you know, but some developers of the game, like the director of Battalion Wars, Tancred Dyke Wells himself, or Gavin Roddery or Ron Ashtiani, they are liking your drawings and tanks on Twitter.
I have seen that all right. Sometimes Fan Battalion, the absolute legend that he is to promote these games, he might upload some of my Battalion Wars tanks I made in Sprocket onto Twitter, or repost one of my Battalion Wars drawings and get them out there for the fans of the series to see. And I remember seeing several times that Battalion Wars creative director Tankard Dyke Wells liked some of my stuff thanks to Fan Battalion promoting it, and I just couldn't believe it. Same with the great concept artists for Battalion Wars, the likes of Gavin Rothery and Ron Ashchani. It's so cool that some of the people who had major roles in making these games actually like the stuff that I make about them. It really is just so cool, and it's brilliant to hear that many of the Battalion Wars developers have gone on to have stellar careers themselves as well.
Yeah, yeah, we were amazed when we achieved to make an interview to Tancred. It was a big project Fan Battalion had in mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was wonderful. So to finish this interview, do you have a message you want to leave for the Battalion Wars community or something, or?
Well, if I could leave a message for the Battalion Wars community, I would just say, well done, lads. You know, it's unbelievable to think that such an obscure series of games has such an active and passionate community of fans. Like our community won't be getting any smaller, only bigger as more and more people remember these games and wonder if there is a community surrounding them, like I did. At the same time, while we all want and hope for a Battalion Wars 3 or remasters of the first two games, at the end of the day, it's just great that all of us Battalion Wars fans can actually cherish these games together, which are so dear to us, really.
Yes, I think that it's sad because this game is very fun, and I think it's very different to every war game that are out there, because it's like a mix of um, a board game, you know, where you can send units, but you can control them, and I
Yeah, there
think that's
really
quite
is nothing
unique.
like it.
And I'm
Yeah,
sure if a big YouTuber make one or two videos about this game, I'm sure many people would like to play it. I'm sure. I'm certain. It's certain.
yeah, you'll really have to keep the fingers crossed now. It
Yeah.
is a bit of a gamble.
That's why I'm trying to make so many videos, tournaments, multiplayer, interviews, anything. Custom campaigns. I mean, for the moment, I'm not making custom campaigns, but I'm playing the custom campaigns, Kupanik, Xeno, and others I'm making.
Yeah,
So yeah. As you said, good job, lads. Because I think the community it's beautiful to just watch everybody making something like multiplayer matches, custom missions, you with tanks, Pagams with the drawings. It's just wonderful.
it really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
really is.
Okay. Well, so if you have nothing more to say, I think we can end the interview here. So we all,
Well,
yeah.
I think if I'm just going to go back to Battalion Wars 3 now for a minute, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, one of the things as well that was kind of bothering me about it, really, while we all wanted Battalion Wars 3 and all that, and um, while I while I do think a remaster of the first two games would be more likely
Mm-hmm.
than a third installment, like as much as Battalion Wars deserves to be a trilogy, In another way, I would like the first games to be remastered over a third game anyway, just in case the developers mess up the third game really badly. Like, you know how modern gaming is. Like, new games are often released unfinished, full of bugs and glitches,
Yes. So
and
maybe
heavily
as
modernized.
what you're thinking is that because we know the two first games are awesome, just remaster them, and you will know. You're certain that the result will be amazing. Instead
Yeah,
of trying to make a third one, not very sure what to make new. So yeah, maybe it's the best solution. Yeah, maybe.
yeah, because if the third game does badly, you wouldn't really want that to stain the good reputation of the Battalion Wars series. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to speak on behalf of the community now and say that we don't want a battle pass in Battalion Wars 3. Yeah,
No, no freaking way.
don't. Not a chance. It's not happening. So yeah, I think that's about it, really.
Okay. Well, we'll thank you very much to be patient with my Spanish accent and his Irish accent. It's perfect for a English
Yeah,
interview. But it was really, I really enjoyed because there were many. I mean, I just knew for your Battalion Wars designs, but I didn't know how Sprocket work and all the drawings. I didn't know you were making drawings, so I was amazed by them. I really like the Type 10 drawing, the Japanese tank. It's amazing.
yeah. I was quite proud of that one now when I finished it off.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think we can end it here. So we all
I think
thank
so.
you a lot for your patience for the third or fourth episode of the Battalion Wars Radio Station. You will have the link to his Twitter and YouTube account. And maybe we will bring some multiplayer matches with Jake. Maybe,
We'll see if all goes well.
maybe because if it goes well, and normally your PC it's able to run it, because if you can run Sprocket, I think you can run Battalion Wars. I think we can have some very funny games with Sprocket with Jake. So thank you all of you, and see you next time. Bye.
Goodbye.